Today we will start the first structural analysis problem in FEM, which is the most simple problem, that is solving bar equation. Let me first write the governing differential equation for bar problem. Here U is displacement, A is area, E is Young's modulus, B is body force per unit mass, rho is density of the material. So, this is the bar equation. Where it is the bar in x direction which is subjected to a body force in x direction, and this displacement area, this can be function of x also, and area and Young modulus, also density can be function of x for most general problem, and we want to find for a given loading what is the displacement at every point of the bar. Other than body force, there can be point load also. Now, first we will derive the variational statement for this differential equation. The bar is from 0 to L, we can do integration by parts. Can rewrite this So, this is our variational statement. Now, there can be two boundary condition. One is U is prescribed if dependent variable is given, then V is 0, that is variation is 0. Otherwise, there can be point load F at the end. That means at any boundary. In that case, AE du dx is equal to F. So, these two boundary conditions are possible. The first one is Dirichlet boundary condition, second one is Neumann boundary condition. Du dx is strain, E du dx is stress, multiplied with area is the end load F. Now, we want to find the elemental equation. I am explaining in terms of quadratic element. So, already we have derived for quadratic element dx equal to j d xi. You remember this j is nothing but b x c hat. So, this b is 1 cross 3, x c hat is 3 cross 1 for quadratic element. Also, we have due dxe, this e is for a particular element 1 by j b u e hat and dve dxc these expressions we have already derived in previous classes. V is n v e hat. Now, we will find the elemental equation from this variational statement for a particular element AE. We want to finally get one scalar. So, we use the transpose notation. So, it will be because it we can write as V E transpose B transpose also, then also it is 1 cross 3, 3 cross 1. V E transpose I take outside the integration because it is nodal value. B by j. Now, dx is j d xi and we take u e hat which is that du dx 1 by j b u e hat. This also we take outside the integration because these are nodal values, these are not function of xi. So, finally, because we are writing in xi coordinate for one element, so integration limit is minus 1 to 1. So, this is our LHS. So, AE, then dV dx is 1 by j b transpose and here V hat transpose, then this du dx we are writing 1 by j b u e hat and dx equal to j d xi. In RHS, let me first write this second term. So, rho a is scalar constant, rho a b can be function of x, and v we can write as again this V E transpose we can take outside the integration, and so V is V E hat transpose N transpose. Then dx is again j d xi minus 1 to 1. Now, the boundary term. So, let us first write this V E hat transpose is already outside N transpose, and the remaining term, that is A E du dx depending on the given boundary condition, this term will be evaluated. Again we use arbitrariness of V E transpose, and we can rewrite the equation as so B transpose is 3 cross 1, B is 1 cross 3, these 3 are scalar, these are all scalar, this is 3 cross 1, this is 3 cross 1, this is scalar. So, finally, we have K E U E hat F E, where element stiffness matrix K E is 3 cross 3, U E, that is vector of dependent variable 3 cross 1, and this is the load vector. Now, we will understand the implementation of this bar element in MATLAB using one example. Let us take this example of conical bar which is fixed at the top end and it is hanging under the action of its self weight. the diameter of this bar is increasing linearly from 0.02 centimeter at the top to 0.05 centimeter at the bottom. The material of the bar has Young modulus 70 GPa and density 2700 kg per meter cube. Also there is point load P1 at point A, which is 20 Newton, which is downward, and P2 which is upward 30 Newton load at point B. Now we want to find the deflection of the bar due to the combined action of the body force as well as these point loads. Now the area of the bar is not constant. So we have to first find this variation from the given information. Now at any x, diameter d is d1 plus where I am taking x in this direction. So area of this conical bar at any x is pi by 4 d square, where d is function of x. Because there are two point load at point A and point B, we require load at these 2 points. Hence we require minimum 3 element to model this problem. So we can divide it in 3 element between the top point and point C. So this is our node 1, node 2, node 3, node 4, node 5, node 6 and node 7. This is at point 2, point 5, point 8. These are the x coordinate. So our nodal x vector is 0, 0.1, 0.2, 0.35, 0.5, 0.65 and 0.8. So these are our nodal coordinates. While implementing it in MATLAB, let us assume this new variable theta, which is d2 minus d1 by L, then dx is d1 plus theta x and ax pi by 4 dx square. Now our element stiffness matrix is Ke while using Gaussian quadrature, we have to calculate the integrand at Gauss point, multiply with the weight and then summation over Gauss points. So this is our integrand. Now, let us see the MATLAB code. This function calculate the value of this integrand at a particular Gauss point, where xi is the Gauss point, d1 and d2 to n diameter, L is the length. Now, x vec is the coordinate of the nodes, that is for element 1 x vec is this vector, coordinate of 3 node. This is for element 1. Now, from one element to other, this is the only variable which will change. These are the shape function at Gauss point n1, n2, n3. xe is the coordinate of the Gauss point, which is obtained by n1 xe1 plus n2 xe2 plus n3 xe3. We did that operation in matrix vector form. After that, this theta is calculated and we get dx d1 plus theta x, and this is our area. This is the B matrix at that Gauss point, and finally, this is the expression of Jacobian. Jacobian is this B xc hat. This xc hat is our x vec. So, B x vec. After that, this integrand, that is A e by j B transpose B, is calculated. So, this is that integrand A e by j B transpose B. So, this function return the integrand of element stiffness matrix expression at Gauss point. Now, if we see our main program, this is our x vec for element 1. These are the Gauss point and corresponding weight for 3-point Gaussian quadrature. So, we calculate the integrand at each of the Gauss point and multiply it with the corresponding weight. This is essentially implementing this summation. Thus, K1 is element stiffness matrix for element 1. For element 2, this xc hat change to 0.2, 0.35, 0.5 nodal coordinate. This is our new x vec. You can see this is our new x vec, and this is the only thing we change from element 1 to element 2. Again, in the similar way, we calculate element stiffness matrix for element 2 using this x vec through rule of Gaussian quadrature. For element 3, again the only thing changes, that is the x vec 0.5, 0.65, 0.8, which we get from for 0.5, 6 and 7. Now, if we run this, so this is our K1, this is our K2 and this is K3. Now, these are the element stiffness matrix. Now, these are global degree of freedom associated with element 1. that is 1, 2 and 3. For element 2, global degree of freedom 3, 4, 5. So, we mark with global degree of freedom for assembly. Similarly, for element 3, these are 5, 6, 7. Now, there are total 7 degree of freedom. So, our global stiffness matrix will have seven column and 7 row. So, first 1, 2, 3, this is where K1 will come, then K2 will come from 3, 4, 5, and from 5, 6, 7 K3 will come. So, this is K1, K2 and K3. So, this 3 comma 3, this global entry, this is present in both K1 and K2. We know in the assembly they will get added. Similarly, 5 comma 5 is present in K2 and K3, they both will be added. Now, let us see in MATLAB, if you see the program, first we assign a 0 matrix to K 7 comma 7, then K1 is placed in the location 1 to 3, 1 to 3, first 3 row and 3 column. Then 3 to 5, that is the global position of K2, 3 to 5, 3 to 5. Now, here we are adding to existing element because we have already entered K1. So, K is not 0 now. After entering K1, this portion is already non-zero. So, we have to add K2 with the existing entry, because at K3 comma 3 has some non-zero value because of K1. Generally in assembly always we should add, only at the very first step all entries are 0. Now, K3 is assembled in the location 5 to 7, 5 to 7. Again we have added because 5 comma 5 is already non-zero. This entry is already there before entering K3. So, thus we assemble element stiffness matrix into global stiffness matrix. So, this entry in the square bracket will be added to this entry, and finally in the global K3 comma 3 we get this value by adding this 4.3146 and 3.8471. So, this is our K3 comma 3 after assembly. Similarly, this 5.6683 10 to the power 8, 7.2661 10 to the power 8, they will be added in assembly to get K 5 comma 5. So, this is our global stiffness matrix. now we will see how load vector is formed using MATLAB. So, this part consists of the integrand which is function of xi. So, we use our usual Gaussian quadrature. So, this is the function for which this is your the Gauss point xi. These are the nodal coordinate for that element. Now, we get the x coordinate of the Gauss point by this n x e hat. After that, we get this dx same as element stiffness matrix. To calculate the area, then Jacobian is calculated in the similar way b x e hat. Then this integrand, if you see rho a b, this b is body force per unit mass. This rho and b are constant for this problem. They are supplied in our MATLAB program. They are supplied in the MATLAB function, and finally this rho a b j in transpose. So, this is nothing but this integrand at Gauss point. So, this function return that integrand of first part of the load vector at one Gauss point for a particular element. Now, if we see our main program, here for each element we calculate this f1, that is that first part of the load vector for element 1. Here again these are the nodal coordinate for first element. We use Gaussian quadrature, we get the integrand value at Gauss point xi1 and multiply it with w1. Similarly, at other Gauss point, and finally we do the summation in Gaussian quadrature to calculate that first part of the load vector. This is for element 1, f1 is for element 1, f2 everything remains same, only the nodal coordinate vector it is different for element 2 and as well as for element 3. Now, if we want to see this f1, f2 and f3, we can remove this semicolon. So, these are that f1, f2 and f3. So, these are the first part of the load vector. For the second part of the load vector, this term for each element equation we can write minus 1 to 1. Now, if it is continuous element, then this term at this boundary from this top element cancel the same term from bottom element because of action and reaction at every point. If there is some external load F, then the summation of this second term for these two elements at this boundary is nothing but this external load F. Then in global equation, when we considering this node node I, then in the global load vector Fi, this external load F1 will directly come. That is, whereas for the global domain still the x equal to 0 and x equal to L are the boundary. This boundary happen only for one element, these are not interface. So, at x equal to 0 and at x equal to L, we have to consider the boundary condition given in the original problem. So, at all interfaces they virtually cancel each other, either they give 0 or point load if it is present. So, always we should consider the point load at the global level. Now, for this problem we have point load at node 3 and node 5. So, point load we have at node 3 which is P1 and at node 5 which is minus P2. This sign should be consistent with our coordinate direction, because our coordinate direction is downward positive. So, P1 is positive, that is 20, and at node 5 it is minus 30, because it is opposite to the coordinate direction. These 2 point loads we should add at the global level. So, these are our element load vector which are obtained from the first part of the load vector. Now, these are the global degree of freedom for element 1, element 2 and element 3. So, in assembly the first thing is these 2 entry will be added for global load vector in the position 3. So, these 2 are added in the global load vector position 3. Also, we have to consider the point load at this global level, which you remember at node 3 it was 20 Newton. We should be consistent in unit. In my all expressions, all the quantities are in SI unit, that is meter, kg, force in Newton. So, in global position 3 of the load vector, the net load is the summation of these 3 quantities. Similarly, for node 5, for that global degree of freedom, these 2 will be added, because this is also global degree of freedom 5, this is also global degree of freedom 5, and also we have external load minus 30. So, finally, we have this global load vector. All other quantities are appearing only once. Now, what about at x equal to 0 and x equal to L? If you see the problem, at x equal to 0 our u is 0, then the variation at x equal to 0 is 0, then this boundary term is not there at x equal to 0, and at x equal to L, that is this surface, this is free surface. Hence, the force on this surface is 0, that is AE du dx. You remember du dx is strain, E du dx is stress, A e du dx is the net load on that surface. So, that is 0 because it is free surface. Hence, that acts as a Neumann boundary condition for this term. So, this term A e du dx at x equal to L is 0. Thus, at x equal to 0 as well as at x equal to L, this term does not come in picture because this term becomes 0. Now, let us see this assembly of force vector in MATLAB. So, here again we make a 0 vector 7 comma 1 for initializing the force vector, then we directly assign F1 to the 0 vector in the location 1 to 3, that is the global position for load vector F1. For load vector F2, the global degree of freedom are 3, 4, 5. So, we add in the existing 3 to 5. Again, no need to repeat that because of already non-zero entry at F3, we have to add to existing global F. We cannot directly assign. Similarly, F3 is added in the global position 5 to 7. So, this is assembly of the first part of the load vector. Now, if you consider the point load, that is at after assembly, in the global load vector we directly add P1 20 and subtract P2 30 from the third and fifth entry of the global load vector. So, these signs are decided by the coordinate direction. P1 is in the coordinate direction x, P2 is the opposite. So, it is minus. Thus, we have global stiffness matrix and global load vector. Now, we have prescribed boundary condition u1 equal to 0. So, the first row and first column are deleted. Because it is 0 boundary condition, load vector remains same. So, our reduced stiffness matrix is from second row to 7th row, second column to 7th column. Similarly, the reduced load vector will be second row to 7th row. In MATLAB program, these are the reduced K and reduced F. So, finally, we get the solution with K inverse F. So, these are from U2 to U7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and our U1 is 0. So, this is our final displacement vector. Now, if we operate the global 7 cross 7 stiffness matrix to this U vector, in the first row we get the reaction force at node 1. So, at node 1 this is the reaction force minus 11.3615. Thus, we get the reaction force at node 1.